So, hello everyone, and today again we are exploring some of the Scrum Master related questions. Yeah, many times these questions are linked with interview, but I think we don't limit the discussion just on interview. Maybe beyond that, how to use Scrum in the real world. Okay, so share your experience, ideas. Probably we also learn from it and explore together.
Hi Saket. Recently, I got an opportunity to get an interview with one of our companies.
Mm-hmm.
The role was of a Agile Project Manager, more of a
Okay.
Scrum Master sort of role. So
Mm-hmm.
actually, for me, I am typically working in a waterfall model, not worked a lot on this Agile framework
Where?
because my
Okay.
company is more into waterfall model because we for my little of my background, I work for a company that is into banking and insurance domain. We
Mm-hmm.
provide a product for banking and insurance domain. So as they are quite huge implementations, so agile I think may not be workable in that model. So that's why we go on a fixed price approach with every client, and then that's why it's more of a waterfall model.
Mm-hmm.
So that was
Mm-hmm.
first of a kind interview for me. So the certain question I will like I want to know whether my answers, because I have not working knowledge on this, so I just
Mm-hmm.
want to understand whether my answers that I given to the interviewer are correct or what is it. So I
Sure.
need
Sure.
your help in that.
Yeah. Let's explore together. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so they start with like what all are the agile estimation methodologies? Like how do you estimate in agile? So my answer to them was like there can be several, like we can do a story point estimation, or we can do a t-shirt size estimation, or playing poker. And then after that they asked me to elaborate more on that, like how do you do a story point estimation. So my answer to them was like we will see like based upon the value of the story and based upon the complexity of the story, like how complex it is, whether it requires an integration with some other modules or it is straightforward. Like for example, if it is a website page designing, then it is a straightforward, so maybe it will be of less story point. But if it is a complex, it has to fetch data from some other application, then it will be a complex module and it will require more story point. So for me, I want to know whether my answer was correct to them or it will require more refinement in like upcoming interviews.
Yeah, sure. So, see, definitely we have like a detailed video of talking about story point estimation, but in
Right.
general, so we need to explore that what is the goal of estimation. And I think better
Mm-hmm.
you bring a story when you answer it, that in our environment, the goal of estimation is this. So,
Okay.
in an agile environment, the goal of estimation is primarily a prioritization initially,
Right.
not about calculating the end date, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest confusion. Because when you want to calculate the end date, then you may need more structured, more detailed, and more certain estimation, and that
Right.
we do over a period of time. In the beginning we don't do. So what do we do? The story point estimation is a judgment about the size of work. So that's the whole idea. Now how do we take that judgment? And what is the size of work? So in a way it does some extent talks about, how much effort, how much time it will go to finishing it, what amount of a complexity it has, what kind of a risk or unknown can put us off the track. And based on the volume of work, for example, even if it's a simple thing, you need to just change a logo, but if that change needs to be done at 100 places, then it has to be estimated as a 100 thing rather than as a one thing, because it has a large volume. It has less, or I would say no, correlation with the value of the work. So value is
Okay.
pre- definitely a different thing. So it's like if something will give me more money or something will give me less money, the story point has no correlation, but yes, your
Okay.
prioritization may have a correlation with that. So you can say that and the idea of doing planning poker together is to also create a common understanding about the requirement. It is just not about driving a particular number for thing. It is also an understanding, and because things are vague, especially in agile
Mm-hmm.
way of working, and at that stage where we want to just understand how big the requirement is. So doing a planning poker exercise also helps us in creating common understanding among the whole team, because unlike a project where one person does an estimation, where and he's the only one who make assumption about it, he's the only one who does research about it. In agile world, we want the team to put their head in full requirement. Everybody should put there, everybody should have a say in it, And that process, the estimation process has more value rather than just an estimation number. That process creates a shared knowledge, shared understanding about a given requirement. So that's the whole way we do the estimation
Okay.
in Agile. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, I got the answer from you. So the next question was a situational question that they asked. They asked me like, for example, you have a huge chunk of work. So
Mm-hmm.
you have a product backlog with you, and you have to like you got the project just now, and you have to commit to the client that what will be the estimated timelines for this completion of this product backlog. And for example, for if you have committed 6 months, so in the upcoming sprints, how will you justify so that your entire work should get completed in 6 months?
Okay, so this looks a little counter or a anti-pattern kind of thing, but still, if
Yeah.
somebody asked it, then somebody might have a reason. So let's try to
Hmm.
understand what is the context. Probably we can say that I am
Yeah.
understanding that we want to pitch in into a work. People want to follow agile, but at the same time, they have timeline in mind, and they want to
Right.
say, can this all gets done in 6 months? Now, if someone can say all this, then what is that all? Is it a need? Is it a high level requirement? Or is it a detailed specification? What I am committing to? Now,
Hmm.
if I'm committing to a detailed specification, then it looks like I will run a pure waterfall project and I will try to keep people away. And then we will
Right.
do an estimate to find out that, okay, can we really do it? Provided we have a detailed specification. But in general, in agile world, the detailed specification might not be available, and we may have a needs, a top level requirements, and person might be saying, I want to get this need moving in the next 6 months because I can't wait beyond that. Now I can say that yes, this is what we together chase to. We will adhere to the need, not necessary to all the features. So somebody may say that, I need an app to receive a online order. I am running a shop and I can only give a 6 months to it, so I need something so that my clients start giving me order online. Now, when I'm giving that, it is saying, can we take care of a need of taking order online? It doesn't mean that will it also have a feature of reordering the previous order? Will it have a feature based on different kind of a search or a recommended product? When the person is buying one order, my app should also recommend that why don't you buy something else also? So these feature can come, may not come, but we don't know exactly will that they all come. But we have a clarity that person needs an online app platform to receive an order. So either, so if I have to answer it, I says I need to understand in which context we are operating in. Are we operating in a
Hmm.
need context, or we are operating in a detailed specification context? Most probably in agile world, we would be operating in a need context. Now, when we operate in a need context, then my whole idea is during next 6 months, next 3 months, whatever the time box we have picked up, about continuously engaging with stakeholder and prioritizing. So I will say that,
Okay.
okay, how best maybe we create a workflow of a typical purchase, and we say we find out together what is the bare minimum needs to happen in order to get something which is essential for our launch. And I have an
Hmm.
agreement on that and get that thing done first. Then I may talk about, so you may talk about a tool called user story mapping. You can do a little bit research. More or less, it is talks about that we need to look at a workflow of work, and then we place a requirement or a user stories under it, and then we identify what is an essential element of it. Sometimes you may want to use a Moscow word for that, must have, should have, could have, won't have. You
Okay.
can say I want to identify the must have features, or any terminology. If you feel that add value in that particular space, you may bring it, or you may bring a previous experience that, I also had a particular client who also wanted to go live, and this is how we did. So the detailed specification one could be a example where you have a compliance need to take care, especially if you are coming from a financial background. You say you can bring an example that, government changed the law, everybody has to comply by this particular date, and we need to just figure out, we have a law in our hand, more or less well defined, and we just need to find out how do we achieve that. And the time is also well given to you. That's a one particular case where you are
Hmm.
chasing a fixed date target. In the another possible case in a financial space could be that we have a web development or a fintech development which was having a little bit of flexibility, but we wanted to go to the customer and give them some self-service mean. And so that we went and we launched a particular app, or we did it, but yeah, there was a continuous improvement in it once it went live also. Yeah, so bring an
Okay.
example of these two.
I answered him on a similar way, but he countered me saying that okay, you are a project manager, so if you are coming to me for a meeting and I have given you a lot of work, like I have tell you like, this much work has to be done. How will you tell me that how much time will this work needs to be taken? I can understand okay, you will do story point estimation, you will do all sorts of tools, but as a customer, I want to understand what will be my end date. So how can you let me know in the starting what will be the project end date?
So there could be a forecast. There could be a forecast of a range. Yeah. And
Okay,
again, and we can put that thing clear that this is based on these assumptions. See, even if the big companies like product companies, be it Microsoft, Apple, and all, they hardly give you a date of their new product. They only
right.
tell in this quarter or in this year or at the end of fall of this year we will bring it up. The date information starts coming in when the product is about to come 3 4 months in time. Usually they talk about the date when they have everything more or less clear. They just need to find out, the date is just meant for the launch date. The work is almost clear. So that's how usually they manage. That was the problem with a traditional thing, traditional development, where on the day one of the project there was an end date, and everybody's saying this is the date we have to achieve, and nobody's clear what will happen by that date. So these are the two views. So I will try to work with the stakeholder and say, based on our current understanding, this is a possible range we can look at. Yeah. So
Okay.
rather than a particular date, I may talk about, between March till June, this is expected to come. And I need to understand from customer empathy also. If it's a compliance project, then it might be a date only.
Right.
Yeah. So then we need to backtrack, because the government is restricting them. They won't be able to do the business after that date if they don't comply to it, or there will be a huge penalty if they don't comply by that date. Then we need to find out what are our option to make it happen. So I think again it depends upon how the interviewer look at it. But from our side, my recommendation is as an interviewee, you can put these situation in hand, and you do have an empathy that date might be also needed. Sometime when we get into an agile world, we may start saying, this is not agile way of working, we don't have a
Hmm.
date here. But yeah, there could
Right.
be a date in a compliance world, but again it may have a challenges as well. Yeah.
Okay. So Saket, can we say like that like if we can like understand with the stakeholders what essential features they require, and accordingly we can come up with the release dates. Like okay, this release one will have all these features, release two will have all these features, and
Yes,
so on.
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. And the whole and when you give an answer, it says that my job primarily is to make people collaborate and understand. My job
Hmm.
is not that I will give the date and then I will do whatever it takes to meet that date and scope. So the
Okay.
whole idea is the date is definitely to set a goal, set a direction, but the skill of a project management is not just limited to making that date happen, but making the collaboration happen. So by that date we deliver a value, or even if we are missing that date, then everybody has a clear understanding why we are doing and what is the value in missing that date, rather than just pushing something with lots of defect, with lots of issues, and you deliver something and then you run away because the vendor is job is over and says, my
Right.
project is over, now you take care of your problem. Yeah, we had a date, we released it, now it is not working after 1 month, what do I do? Yeah, and it happens, in a software world, the vendor will finish everything in 6 months, and after using 3 months you will realize this thing is a little nightmare for you. So we can
Right.
say we want to be collaborative, and collaboration is the key, but definitely we work on the dates.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So the next question they've asked me is like, for example, you are a project manager in Agile, and you estimated the upcoming iteration. Like, okay, this will take 4 weeks of time. So, but you told that okay, we have three developers, two testers, and one BA, for example. But the thing is that when you checked your internal resourcing, you didn't got. For example, you are short of one BA and two testers. So in that case, you have already committed the timelines to the end user. So in that case, what should you do
Yeah.
if you are lack of resources?
Yeah. So I don't know. Actually, many looks like this question was that they were also looking for like what kind of a challenges you bring in rather than
Right.
answering them. So you
Yeah.
may say that this is not the way the work should operate. And this was at some point in time we used to do where pre-sales used to commit something. They used to come to a project manager. Project manager used to get assigned, but there was no team behind him, and then we are figuring
Right.
out what to do. So it's a old word which was there, and over a period of time we should not be doing that in a way. So
Mhm.
that should not be a case where someone commits without even knowing what he committing to, and without having a necessary resources. Because how do I know it will take 3 weeks if I don't know who is working on it? Because a person A might be able to do it in a 1 week, and person B might be able to do it in a 4 weeks. So I don't
Right.
know. So before I really, and somebody may say, but you need to give an answer to the client. So
Mhm.
estimation might be needed at a level where the project management and some of the technical guy are doing, which are just to forecast some tentative work and tentative timeline. But if you want to have a 4 week granularity, then you need to look into the people who are going to work with you. So in a way, you say that I won't do this mistake by committing something on my own, because I'm not the one who is going to do the work. I will definitely make people evaluate and commit who are going to do it, rather than I evaluate and I commit and assign someone else. So that's my first defense. And somebody says, no, it might have happened before you joined in, for example, and now you
Mhm.
are in this particular situation. Yeah? So now, you definitely don't want to do it, but somehow it happened. Somehow it happened, and now you are in this mess. Somebody has committed, your sales guy has committed, and you have been assigned as a project manager, and you don't have a resources. Now you may talk about that, okay, if I happen to be in that situation, then I look at my option by way of bringing transparency of the consequences of the current stage to my internal stakeholder, as well as, if needed, to my external stakeholders also. So for example, I may go and speak about my challenges, that what will happen if the delivery get delayed, what is the cost of client dissatisfaction, I will try to make that cost of clients dissatisfaction clear to the people who can help me in getting this team working. Yeah. And if they convince by seeing that this is a big impact, then we get started. Assuming if they don't convince and they say we are okay to take a penalty, we are okay to default on our customer date, then I work towards the customer and inform him in as advance as possible that, we have done something, we seems to have done a blunder with it, and I acknowledge this has happened, and nothing else we can do about it, rather than telling you that this is going to happen to you. So
Okay.
it's like, first, I don't do it. Second, if it happens, then I work with the stakeholder to rescue the team, or a company's reputation and interest, because it's just not my commitment, it's a commitment of everyone, and there will be a consequences on everyone. I try to make that clear to my internal stakeholder, and by something like empathy for my work. If that doesn't come and people say, we will go with it, we don't have, we are helpless, they also show their helplessness, then I go and communicate transparently to the stakeholder, rather to the customer, rather than he comes to know after 4 weeks. I will tell him in the first week only that this is not going to work.
Okay. So can I answer in this way, like Saket, like as a project manager, I will not do the estimation by myself.
Yeah,
I will discuss with the team first, and based upon that only, I will commit the like timeline of 2 weeks or 4 weeks to the customer. So
yeah,
in that
yeah.
way, I can mitigate the risk that resources are not available or any issues are there.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. And in a
Okay.
project management, not only about agile project management only, in a general project management, we talk about, again, the estimate various levels, and sometimes we keep getting confused at which level estimation is happening. But when estimation is expected to be a committable estimation, it is always recommended that estimation should be done by the people who are going to do the job. Someone else should not be
Mhm.
doing estimation on the behalf of someone else, especially when you have to commit to. But when you are just giving a forecast, sometimes you are sitting in a boardroom or in a client interaction, and you don't actually have a team, people are not even hired. Yeah, they are just talking about a possible requirement. That point in time, with the help of some technical experts, you may do a judgmental estimate, and there is a risk associated with that estimate, and everybody should be understanding that, I make as a project manager clear the risk and assumption associated with such kind of estimations. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the next question on the same lines they countered me is like you are a project manager, and one of the influential stakeholder called you. You are in a mid of a sprint of 4 weeks, and one of the stakeholder called you that they want to expedite the sprint, like the feature that you are going to deliver in 4 weeks, they now need in 2 weeks, and you have already committed based upon your capacity that it can only be delivered in 4 weeks. So in that case, what will you do? You will stop the sprint, or you will deploy more team to the to the sprint, or
Work, yeah.
how will you manage? So
Mhm.
my answer to them was like, we have already committed based upon our capacity. So in this case, if we fast track the sprint, it will not be possible because team has limited capacity. So maybe we can give them the feature that they require in this sprint, and maybe in the another sprint we can check on the capacity and go ahead with that.
Perfect, perfect. So it's all about. I think that's the possible answer, and I don't see any risk in that. The whole idea is, if I recommend, then you may spend some time explaining that I want to be understand and empathize with what made customer do what they are doing. So that's
Okay.
the first thing. So again, it could be a solution. I think in general, when we interview and give an interview answers, we better spend time in explaining the problem and making some assumption about that problem and making it clear. I
Hmm.
am assuming this is why the client is saying it. And if
Okay.
that will be the case, I will do this. So I may say that,
Okay.
okay, client has come to it. I want to understand what is the case. Is it
Hmm.
something like a fire? There is some emergency, something has happened. And if there is a crisis, if there is a real crisis, then our team also need to find out, along with supporting the client together, how best we can deal with the crisis, and which may result into working overtimes and putting extra efforts. There could be thing, provided both of us, team and the customers, we are clear that we have this crisis, and we all understand these such kind of crises don't occur every other day. They come, and when they come, then people need to really become a one team and respond it as a crisis response mechanism. So that's the first
Okay.
thing I want to understand. What is the real thing behind it? If there is no crisis and someone is coming up because of some of the priority change, some of the management change, or something, then I may put that, why do you want to disturb something which is happening right now? Because we
Hmm.
are already done a good amount of work. This kind of a trouble will make waste a lot of our work, because
Right.
it will create a kind of a replanning, and if there is no real crisis for it, then why don't we wait for a 2 weeks and then we prioritize that particular feature after that? Yeah. So I probably negotiate there if I don't see a crisis thing happening. If I see a third thing, that this is going to be a pattern now, the business environment has changed, and we were working with a one team, and there were set of requirement, but the product has become live now. And since the product has become live now, there are multiple dimensions needs to be taken care, and this particular team will not be able to handle it going forward, because this is going to be the thing. Then I also work with the stakeholder and my customers to think of, do we need to augment the team? Yeah. And
Hmm.
again, we all understand this augmentation of team may not produce result in this iteration alone, because anyway, it will take its own time to reach to a productive stage. But yeah, that could be also an option where we augment the team and do it. There could be a fourth thing where, say, it's a small work which can be done by some other team, and we have a
Right.
readily available team. My management is willing to lend that team, say, support work, some data migration work. Then that part of clear work, we can take a support from say another team, and they may help us in doing it, and we continue something which we are doing. So it is, you can say that I need to understand what is the situation. There are multiple ways of handling, or probably thinking about this particular problem.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So now next question they ask me is like, how do you monitor the progress in an agile environment? Like you are working on a sprint, and how do you monitor the progress? So what the answer that I gave to them is, I will monitor the velocity of the team, like how team is working on the work that they committed in the sprint. Second, we have tools like burnt down chart, burnt up chart, where we can see how much is remaining and how much we have done the work. But I think the my answer was not bite. They have not bite my answer. They still keep on asking me like, what extra, what all tools are there. So are there any other tools also to monitor the progress apart from these?
So see, definitely these tools are the most popular tool. That's the
Yeah.
perfect thing. And we don't know what the person is looking for when the person is
Mm-hmm.
asking this particular question. So there is a two way of looking at things. It says, what do I need to monitor? Like, what is
Mm-hmm.
the goal of monitoring? Is it
Okay.
the monitoring is that, do we have a good collaboration in the team, or is it the monitoring of, are we producing the desired software at the end, or is it a monitoring of that, are we making good quality work inside the development? So there could be a multi dimensions of the monitoring, or I would
Mm-hmm.
say. And you can say that, looking at an agile philosophy of way of working, rather than monitoring, it's more about exposing the issue. Rather than I say,
Mm-hmm.
I am the one who is going to monitor what who is doing. My whole job is how do I make things transparent, exposed to my team members, so that they can see when things are not working and they can do something about it. So the whole
Right.
idea is that exposing the stuff. Yeah, so you try to argue on the word monitoring itself and says how
Mm-hmm.
possibly I can expose the thing. Now, one of the tools, you can say, we can use some quantitative tools where we show
Okay.
some data like burn down chart. We may show some velocity charts. We may have a sprint goal commitment met, not met, something which is coming from the previous trends, that how frequently we are meeting our sprint goals and not meeting sprint goals. And it may talk about the overall code quality which might be happening over a period of time. So I can say that probably if I just think here, and you can say the strategy of doing this monitoring or governance is a little team specific. It's not necessary to be common, but I need to
Mm-hmm.
understand which all dimensions might be important for the team. So one is an output dimension, which you referred about, like how many
Right.
story points they are producing, how much product they are delivering. So something like output, what output they are producing. There could be a quality dimensions also, that what is the quality of work they are doing. There could be a say relationship or a behavioral dimensions also, that how as a behavioral, as a team, collaboration and sustainable pace, happiness, that part is working in this thing. And the fourth possible, we limit to a, for example, fourth dimension for explanation point of view, is a customer orientation. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, how well they are meeting customer expectation. You may conduct a survey on a periodic basis and seeing, how well they understand the customer language. So it is a combination of these 4 5 factors, and depending upon which one is the major concern area, I might have a little more stringent process or a mechanism to expose those things. So
Okay.
in a way, yeah,
Okay. Got it.
yeah.
So the next question they ask me is, how do you monitor quality in Agile? Like you are doing a sprint, then how do you monitor the quality of the work that you are doing? So the answer that I gave to them is that there will be a definition of done with each sprint, like what we are doing should be acceptable by the client. So at the end of the sprint, when we give a demo to the client, if that definition of done is met with the client's expectation, then we can say it's of good quality. And if it is not done, then in the retrospective we can do a brainstorming on that, like what we have lagged, why it is lagged, and then based upon that we can take the suggestions into the next upcoming sprints. But they keep on insisting on what tools will you use. So tools I am not
Mhm.
aware, like in what quality tools we can use in Agile.
Okay, so I can see probably for this particular
Hmm.
interview, these two questions are related. The previous one,
Okay.
where they were talking about how do you monitor your team, and then
Right.
how do you monitor quality. So now there are some tools, yeah, which are primarily give you some health check of the code quality. So
Okay.
there are tools which can talk about the test coverage, that how well the unit testing and other test is covered. Is your complete code is 100% having 100% coverage or not having 100% coverage. There are some tools which can also judge based on the way the code is written, about like you may have some coding standards, that
Hmm.
function should not be of this much big, the naming should be like this, such kind of a repetitive code should not be used. So if there is a two places the same code is copied, you can see that there's a repetition of code. The whole developer is repeating the code. So there are tools which can capture that. Do you have a code repetition? Do you have a missing test cases? And do you have a maybe a lack of automation to test the end work? So might be they were looking for those kind of terminology as well as experience, that okay, have you worked in a code quality level things. And I think that's why in the first question also they were expecting you will talk about some of the quality measurement tools. And
Right.
then the second one, they didn't get it, then they asked the specific question, that how do you
Hmm.
measure the quality of a code. So yeah, so you can explore. Yeah, there are some kind of like tools to do the test coverage and other things checking.
I took an example of Saket Jira tool, like I work on Jira a lot. So I told them that okay, whenever you are working on Agile, you will create epic and then stories in Jira, and then when there is an issue, then it will be logged. So it will have all the, like it will have all the tracking, like who has logged it, when it has occurred, what is the issue, who is working on that, when it will be fixed. So based upon that, we can monitor like whether our work is going fine, it is having issues, and if it is having issues, then how much time we are taking it to fix it. So is that correct answer? Like, can
It
Jira be a
is, it
quality
is,
man?
it is a tool. The only difference is it is primarily focusing on project management aspects. It is not
Okay.
focusing on the coding aspect. So, for example, someone has written the same code three places. So he should
Okay.
have been creating a separate function which should get called at a three places rather than copy pasting the three same code at three places. Because when we do need to do a customization, then I need to
Hmm.
change three places. So it's not a
Right.
good quality code. Now, Jira will, so the way we use Jira, so these tools can also plug in with various product lifecycle tools like Jira and all, but these tools are more on checking the quality of code. And I'm sensing
Hmm.
they might be looking for some of the exposure related to those tools. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next question they ask me, like you are in an ongoing sprint. So what risk you see can be possible during a sprint? So I told them that maybe we have overestimated the effort. Like it is a like 8 story point and we have done a 10 story point to it. Maybe the developer has not understood the entire work properly, or maybe the tester has not understood the type of work that he needs to perform. But I think they are not convinced in my answer. So, or there can be a scope creep also. Like user has came back and asked me to give some more features in the sprint. So after answering that, he was saying what more can be the risk in a particular sprint.
Yeah, perfect. So I think in order to handle this kind of a question, or as well as to present the answer well for a project managers or any agile way
Yeah.
of working, we can say what are the possible categories which can go wrong? What are the areas?
Okay.
So I think you picked up the requirement category and you also picked up little bit on project management or a commitment
Yeah.
oriented category. So you picked up, there is a vagueness in requirement, there is a
Hmm.
over requirement or over creeping of requirement, and then there is a risk associated with wrong estimation and things. So these are the two categories. There could be other categories also. So for example, there could be a technical risk. Yeah. So
Hmm.
something which you thought will work, but technically you are unable to resolve it. You have been running your proof of concepts and all those things, but still it is not coming as you expected. So it could be a technical risk. There could be a people oriented risk also. Somebody may disappear at particular date, somebody may get into some exception and he can't handle it, somebody may get a personal challenge, his focus get diverted. So there could be a people oriented risk also. We can also talk about that some of the maybe a probably a stakeholder risk, so that some
Hmm.
stakeholder who were expected to provide us answers, details, collaboration, be it a product owner. So those kind of people may go missing, they get something emergency or something which can take our work or our thing aside. There could be some infrastructure risk. So something which you were working on, say development infrastructure, be it your integration infrastructure, your Amazon server, your compilation tools, whatever you were using, they may go off track. So you can say that these are the possible categories, but again, depending upon the team, I will identify which are the possible category are relevant for them. And then because it depends upon historical view that how things has been turning out in the previous iterations. But based on my current experience, I do see the issues related to infrastructure sometime coming up, but nowadays we are stable, but people risk comes up, technical risk, used to happen in earlier stages, but now we are pretty much getting stable in our work. So that way you can probably put that across. Yeah. So think of
Okay.
a
So
categories. Yeah.
yeah. So are there any tools also available for risk mitigation? Because you are more interested to know about the tools that I have used in my previous project. So are there any tools also available for that?
So what I see is that as much I understand about risk and tools relationship, it is more about documenting and making things visible. So
Okay.
and your Jira kind of thing will work here, where because it's a
Okay.
project management stuff. So you can say that yeah, we do have a area in our section which is the way we manage issues. We also manage risk, and this risk area is shared with the client, and some of There are ownership defined based on that. So you may have some risk register kind of a tool where you might be recording it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So the next question he asked me regarding the capacity planning, like how do you plan the capacity for a sprint? So he told me, like, for example, you are working on a sprint with a set number of people. Your management told you that, okay, hey, project manager, we have a certain people that are coming from some other project. They are released from that project, and you can use them. We can't have them on the bench. So just do the planning properly and use them. So in that case, how will you induct them into your project, because you have already have a people on board who are working, and then with the incoming people, how will you manage your upcoming sprint?
So it is again, we start with some assumptions and all, because see, it all depends who are the people who are joining in. Are they
Hmm.
have like, do they have a understanding of the technology you are working in? Do they have an understanding of the domain you are working in? Are have they worked for the same customer before? Have they worked with these team members before who were part of it? So there are various factors which will help me in driving what do I do. Yeah, if
Okay.
everything is new, so that these people are coming from a technology which has never worked, is not relevant here, they have worked in a domain which is not relevant here, they have never worked with these people here, then the best thing probably I would say that please don't disturb me, because it's going to hamper my productivity significantly, because
Okay.
everybody will end up teaching them and they are not having any familiarity with each other. So it will be a building human relation as well as technical relation and business relation, all is very difficult. So that's a one thing. So I would try to discourage that, or even if I try to include, then I may include over a period of time, not everybody coming together, because if everybody comes together, say I have a 10 people team and I'm including 7 people from there, then maybe for next 2 sprints we are just educating these 7 people, we may not be
Hmm.
able to produce anything. Now even the remaining
Right.
10 people may not be able to produce anything, but if it's only 2 3 people, then still we can absorb. So I need to see what is my current strength, what is my current trend. Are we comfortably delivering already, or even we are also struggling and the people are coming in, then there could be a little more struggle for me. So I need to understand those things, and based on this I will come up with a I would say induction plan, or a conversion plan, that okay, how possibly we can take these people forward. Possibly it may go through training, possibly it may go through they end up reading the code and give us the knowledge. So I would say, guys, I don't have time for my team may not have a time for you. I One possible approach, I'm not saying which I'm taking it, but I will make my code available to you. Why don't you understand the code and give us a presentation what we are doing? So that way we create kind of a learning system, keep them little away from the doing. Maybe I
Hmm.
just make them learn about what we are doing for a while. And once my team start feeling, the current team start feeling that these guys are at level where they can start interacting with them and take them into work, they will start observing them. So
Okay.
difficult to give
Okay.
a direct approach here. Yeah.
Okay, got it. The next question they ask me is, like, for example, you have got an issue with the team, like you are working in a sprint and there is a conflict between the team members. So as a project manager, how will you do the issue mitigation? So my answer to them was, like, it's a self-organizing team. In Agile we use self-organizing team. So if first of all, I will try them to resolve the issue by themselves, because they
Hmm.
can. And if it is escalated to me, like if my involvement is required, then only I will step in and do the issue mitigation. But at that f- after this answer, they ask me, like, but this will delay the sprint if you don't step in and resolve the issue. This might cause a delay in the sprint. So then in that case, how will you mitigate that?
Perfect.
So should we
So
so should we
i-
step in before they ask me to step in, or how should you approach that?
yeah. So as I said, that especially in interview case, we need to spend some time with the question only before even give the
Hmm.
answer. So we can
Okay.
say that I need to understand that what is the nature of conflict and what is an
Okay.
impact of conflict, and
Right.
how letting them resolve or how my intervention is going to impact there. So if the
Hmm.
conflict is healthy and it is not drastically impacting our deliverable, then I will definitely let them explore, because it's a self I want to promote and I want to make them learn how to resolve their own conflicts rather than always remain dependent on me. That
Hmm.
that might be an approach. If I see that conflict is not that easy and seems to be a little prolonging longer than what we can tolerate, and have some amount of event, then I may do a little lighter intervention rather than taking a control of it. I may ask few questions and make them see and have a conversation on themselves alone, so that they can resolve it. So I may do a little kind of a facilitation job which can trigger a conversation about conflict. I may ask a question, I may give them a time that why don't you have a conversation, why don't you set up some criterias to make a decision about this particular thing, maybe look back to our ground rules, look back to our what customer needs. So I may give some suggestion, some advices based on what I believe, but I let the responsibility of resolving conflict to them only. That could be a second thing. The third thing is, if the impact is so huge and everybody must do something now only, else we may have a impact, then whatever is in my power I do. So whatever is in my knowledge I do understand I am making team dependent on me, but I may become the key contributor to resolve the conflict by way of understanding the perspective, by way of doing the data analysis for the area related to it, and then and dissolve that particular conflict by doing some extra intervention and effort from my side. So but
Okay.
and I do make a note when I am doing it, that this is we are doing because we are in this particular stage, we have a target in mind. If we would have not have these kind of a conditions, I may not have it got involved at that level in order to resolve your conflict. So I also make it clear so that I'm not devaluing the self-organizing thing.
Okay, got it. The last question they ask me is like in Agile, who all are involved in the estimation? Like who all are the people who are involved in the estimation? So in this scenario, my answer was like as it is a self-organizing team. So mostly the developers are involved in the estimation, and if the testers and BA are there in the self-organizing team, in their area of work, they can provide the estimate, and then collectively we can do the estimation like okay, this much is the complexity, this much is required, so we can do the estimation. But they asked me that as a project manager, what will be your role in this estimation? Will you be involved or will you just sit and listen to the estimates?
Yeah. So again, we need to ask at what level the estimate is happening. So if the
Hmm.
estimate is happening, which is about to do an execution, and I have a people, I have a fair amount of understanding that this set of people will be involved in this particular work, then the people who are involved in this work should be doing it. That's the
Okay.
one thing. So definitely, whoever is contributing to get the job done, that person should have a say in doing estimation. That's an
Okay.
important part. Now, should we segment based on function? In general, it is not recommended. It says, you all work together and come up, give a final number, which is a team number, especially if
Right.
it is done for a little longer term, give a final number. That's the one thing. Now, what is as a project manager you do? I facilitate, I ask question. If someone is, if my team is agreeing to something too early, then and if I see a risk there, I stop them, I challenge them. So I am not a mute spectator. I am there, but at the same time, I am not an estimator. So I need to
Hmm.
find a role between these two. So I don't tell this will take 10 days, this will take 10 points, this will take 5 points. You are doing too much, you are doing too less. I don't do this. At the same time, I just don't take, these guys are saying, okay, let's put it this, let's put it this, and then I go to client. I have no clue about it, why they are doing. So I ignore these two extremes and I play somewhere in between. And that in between play also depends upon how mature the team is. So if the team is well matured, my intervention could be less. I may occasionally ask question. If the team is new, then I may ask questions more and more frequently. So I ask question to dig and validate their assumption, to challenge their estimation, to facilitate the conversation. Sometimes their conversation may go in a directions where it is not converging to a healthy level. So I do that kind of an intervention. So I definitely remain I remain engaged. I'm just not sitting and saying, these guys will give me an estimate, then I will work on it. No.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it. This was all about this interview question. I One last question I have regarding in my mind is like, for example, as I am working on a product that my company is selling a product for banking and insurance, like is there any challenge that these are very big engagements that span over a period of 1 year to 2 years? So is there any challenge that why we are not adapting agile in this, and why we are working only on the waterfall model? Do you see any challenge in that? Like, are they too huge to be estimated in agile way, or the teams cannot perform in an agile way for these implementation? What is the reason behind that?
I see. Actually, I don't know, but the whole thing is that we don't know what is agile. That's the whole thing.
Mhm.
So maybe a good amount of agility might be there, but it might be wrapped under waterfall. So what I can
Right,
sense here is that agility is almost everywhere. If you have, say, you have a loan application, and you know this
right,
is how the loan application works, and you have
right.
designed this application and you have installed this application into 20 banks, and you are
Mhm.
selling to another bank, and you are saying this is a loan application, this is how it takes data from your, say, core banking software, and this is how this kind of a workflow it produces, and this is how it works. So in a way you are giving the complete boundary, this is
Mhm.
what we will do and this is our product is. Yeah.
Right.
Now, when you come up with that boundary, that's sometimes the companies may also ask, give us a fixed price for putting this thing here. So as soon as
Mhm.
the contract become fixed price, the vendor will have all the incentive to also fix the scope. So they don't want to play here and there at a broader level. That okay, and sometime when you have a product and you just want to put the product in the company, the client's infrastructure, you may have clearly defined pluggable points also, that okay, these are the 5 points this plug needs to be integrated, and after that this system will start working and producing you this data. So in those kind of a well defined thing, you need to balance that you don't go beyond what your product does, you don't go beyond what you are committing to. At the same time, some amount of agility will be there when it relates to the prioritization, availability of customers, change in the team, and rather than customer seeing the result only at the end, you may do incremental installation. Rather than you put the whole product in a one go, you may start showing them taking feedback. So you do an
Mhm.
increment one, increment two, take a feedback, you customize it. So it might be a mixture of some amount of predictability, because the contract is kind of predictable, and some
Right.
amount of agility because the people and human relations and implementation is little vague in nature. So I think it's a combination of these two things might be coming as a customized methodology for your work. Yeah.
So regarding the efforts, we do a fixed price, but regarding the releases, we do a release bound. Like, okay, release one will have this feature, release two will come in 6 months time, so it will have this feature. So can we call it as a bit of agile, like we are
Yeah,
releasing in
yeah, yeah,
phases?
yeah. So you can say that you are keeping your batch size. So you have an incremental releases. So you
Right.
can say, so the more you can look at it is that we have pretty well understood scope in a
Mm-hmm.
way, but we have incremental releases. So what you are doing is you are not necessarily doing the pure agile development where the scope is also emerging, but at the same
Right.
time, you are not doing pure waterfall development where the delivery only happens at the end. So
At the
you
end.
have incremental releases. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Okay.
then
Got it.
incremental releases also gives you a feedback to learn and adjust as and when needed. So there are continuous increments, but the nature of work and the nature of business model requires some amount of predictability of the scope and work.
Okay. Got it. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So good place to close. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Yeah. In case we get more question, we can definitely do similar conversation sometime
Sure.
later.
Sure. Thanks a lot for your time, Saket. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.